Welcome back, everyone. So I am again sitting here in the ponderosa pine forest of Flagstaff with a rain cloud brewing overhead, and I've taken the new CRF 300LS out today. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. There's something that I've done over the last 2 weeks which I haven't done since December, and that is not run. So for the last 2 weeks, I have done absolutely nothing with respect to fitness or cardio or exercise. I've basically vegged out, and it's been glorious to not go out and put on big miles on my body to train for these races. And so with that, I spent a lot of time deciding whether or not I was going to do a run report for my experience at Hardrock. And ultimately I decided I did want to share some thoughts about the race, because something happened at Hardrock that was entirely new to me in all of my years of running. It was a little bit scary, and it was a little bit eye-opening, and yeah, so I'll just go ahead and jump in and tell you about my race. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a link to my full race report, my run report, in the comments, so if you want the gory details, you can click on that and read everything about my run. But the Cliff's Notes version is that I did finish the race within the cutoff, so I was an official finisher. And so by doing so, not only did I complete Hardrock a second time and in the opposite direction, so in the eyes of the Hardrock elite, I am now a true Hardrocker. But also, by doing so, I completed the infamous double. And for somebody like me, a mid-packer, completing the double was an enormous challenge. And I am absolutely grateful to come away from this goal successful. However, it does not come without an enormous amount of hardship and struggle, we'll say. As you know, I ran Western States about a month ago, and I was in great shape for that race. Now I did have the incident with my knee, but that was fine, and I went into that race probably in some of the best fitness I've ever been. I ran the race conservatively, so purposefully slow. There was a ton of snow on the course, and yet I still finished almost an hour faster than when I ran it in 2017. And then 2 days later, after the race was over, I was already completely recovered and ready to run again. So that's a testament to how well I trained, but also how smart I played that race. And so I will tell you that going into Hardrock, I guess I would say fell into the hubris trap a little bit. I went in thinking not only would I be able to improve on my time from 2018, but improve on it significantly. I felt like I was gonna knock it out of the park. A week or so before the race, I was feeling pretty good about myself and started imagining, you know, I could finish in 37 hours or maybe 36 hours. For reference, it took me 40 in 2018. But that all started to change in the week leading up to the race. So the first thing that kind of put me back in my place was about a week before the run. I was up in Colorado acclimating to the elevation, just getting ready, and I decided to hike a 14er. I hiked Maroon Peak, one of my final 5 that I need to hike. I struggled with it, which was weird because I hike 14ers all the time, never had a problem. It was really difficult. It was class 3, class 4, very technical, so that slowed me down. But then I also noticed I was having a little bit of trouble breathing on the high parts, and I sort of just chalked it up to the elevation. I wasn't quite acclimated yet or something. But you know, I live at 7,000 feet now, and I've never really had that type of issues with altitude. So I wasn't sure what was going on, but I sort of just brushed it off. Well, then I got to the race, and we had all the race briefings, and we were told that not only was there an enormous amount of snow on the course that was going to slow us down, very treacherous in places too, like iced over with ropes and, you know, needing micro spikes and that kind of thing, but we were told to the delight of many, not myself, that the weather forecast was for entirely clear skies, high temperatures, and no rain. And normally that might sound good, you know, to avoid the thunderstorms of Colorado, but having just run Western states in very dry conditions, I knew that those types of conditions were going to be pretty demanding. And so when all those things came together the night before the race, I can remember sitting in my hotel room with my partner. I had a little bit of an anxiety attack about the race, and it all kind of came at me, and I realized, crap, I'm about to go do this really difficult race. What was I thinking? And I remember the last thing I told her before I went to bed was, this is one of the few races that actually really scares me. So I'm not going to spend much time going over my run report, all the details, but I will tell you a couple things about what happened in the race. I would say I could break my race up into two separate races. The first half, which was from mile 0 to mile 75, was great. I was moving well, I was climbing well, I was eating and hydrating well, and I was loving the scenery, enjoying every step of it. And to the point where at mile 75, I was starting to think like, wow, you know, I don't know what I was so worried about. And I did great. And when I came into the mile 75 aid station in Telluride, I was right on pace to finish in about 40 hours again, which I was good with. I was happy with, knowing that it was the harder direction and the snow had really slowed me down. I was content knowing I'd run about the same. But then the second race was from mile 75 to the finish, and that's where I catastrophically fell apart. And not in a typical way, not fatigue or muscle cramping or anything like that. What happened was very acute, and it was a medical condition. So all of the dry air and dusty air that I breathed in at Western states, I never fully recovered from. Hiking that 14er in dry conditions exacerbated it. And then running for over 30 hours on the Hardrock course, breathing in just dusty, dry air. And what happened was, as I left the 75-mile aid station on the next climb, my lungs started filling with fluid, with mucus and fluid, a type of pulmonary edema. And I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe. It was a terrifying feeling. It felt as though I were drowning on land. That's the best way to describe it. And I had a pacer with me, a really good friend of mine, who's also a Barkley finisher and who is an EMT. And he immediately recognized my symptoms. He said, I know what your condition is. I did a bunch of 14ers with a friend of mine, and he had the same thing happen to him. He said what it's called is exercise-induced asthma. And it typically occurs when you breathe in a lot of dry air over extended periods of time. It inflames your lungs, they start overproducing fluid, and then it just becomes a sort of feedback, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And the only way to really make it better is to just stop and rest. And so basically, as the race progressed from 75 to the finish, it just got progressively worse. And every time we had a big climb of 4,000 feet, I would, climb 20 feet, gasp for air, almost pass out, get tunnel vision, have to sit down, slow my breathing, get up, hike 30 feet, almost pass out. And this cycle just went on and went on, and, for the rest of the race. And I'd get to the top of a pass, and as soon as I started descending and my heart rate came down, I was fine. But every time there was a climb, I was gasping for air. It didn't matter what elevation I was at. I started losing so much time, to the point where I told my pacer, I don't think I'm going to make the cutoff at 48 hours. I think I'm going to get timed out, because it's taken me hours, for each climb. But we managed to kind of inch our way through the last 25 miles. And when I got to the final aid station, after all the climbs were done, All I had left was 6 miles downhill. And I couldn't even breathe downhill at this point. I was coughing up phlegm, and the medics at the aid station heard me coughing and struggling to breathe, and they said, "We're gonna pull you. This is a medical pull. We're gonna cut your wristband and call it." And I was very upset. I said, "There's no way you're pulling me at mile 95. I don't care if I have to crawl in, especially since it's all downhill." And so I basically convinced the medics that because the course was all downhill from that point, that you know, I had to get to the finish for help anyway. I might as well just walk it in. And so they agreed reluctantly to let me just walk it in, but also knowing that my pacer was an EMT. So I almost got pulled at mile 95. That was a first for me. And sure enough, I just, you know, waddled my way down the mountain, delirious, sleep deprived, unable to breathe, gasping for air. It was horrific. And when we finally did get down into town, the last couple of miles just dragged on forever. When I did finally finish, I tried to jog into the finish line, and I got about 4 steps and almost passed out because I couldn't breathe. But I did finish in almost 45 hours. It was 44:50 something. So I lost almost 5 hours in the last 20 miles. And I immediately went to the medical crew at the finish. They put a blood oxygen sensor on me, and it measured 84. 84. Just for reference, that's like clinically dead. It's supposed to be like 97. And so they freaked out, and they put me on all sorts of oxygen. They put me on a nebulizer, all this crazy stuff. I was just hacking up so much phlegm. And about an hour later, they measured me again, and I was up to like 95. So it just, you know, I wasn't getting enough air. And it was weird. It was like I was truly hypoxic. It was like, I remember taking flying lessons, learning about the symptoms of hypoxia. And I remember, like, as I was coming down those last 5 miles, almost feeling like euphoric and giddy, like, wee! And it was because I was literally hypoxic. And it's terrifying that, you know, you don't realize it's happening to you. So that's the story. Acute exercise-induced asthma. And here I am a couple weeks later. I'm back to normal. I had to use an inhaler for a couple days, which was weird. What that all means is I did it. I'm happy. I got my buckle. I finished my double, but I've taken a couple weeks off, and it's been nice. You know, part of me wonders, could this be related somehow, some long-term damage that you know, that's still lingering in my lungs from when I got COVID a year ago. It's possible. Maybe they never fully recovered. So it's definitely a reality that, or possibility that I need to consider. Looks like it's starting to get some rain. So with that, I'm going to sign off. But I'm happy to report that I'm healthy. Things appear to be okay now. Take care, everyone. Be safe. See y'all. Bye.